Welcome to Small Business Celebration. We're continuing our series on small business owners who are getting the move on. And our guest this week, well, his business is full of oohs and ahs and evildoers and hisses, but a place where good always triumphs over evil. This is Small Business Celebration. Welcome, where we chat with real business owners who have real success and learn from them about what works, what doesn't, and who want you to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and it's not a train. Join us where you can learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. Welcome to Small Business Celebration, and our guest this week is Michael Prince, the owner of the Gaslight Melodrama and Music Hall. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Glad to be here.
And for visionaries who don't know who you are you, and what is it that you do?
I'm Michael Prince. I am the co-owner and the artistic director of the Gaslight Melodrama Theater and Music Hall.
We are here in the audience of the Gaslight Melodrama, and this has been an interview I've been looking forward to making for a long time. As many of you know, I have a background in theater, film, and television, and it's always nice to come back to a warm, welcoming environment. And Michael, for those who don't know, what is the melodrama? Because we know what film is, we know what television is, but for visionaries who don't know what a melodrama is, what's melodrama?
Melodrama, the style of melodrama theater dates back to the early 1800s. It's very similar. It's a very American art form of theater, of live performance, similar to jazz, where it comes from kind of a working class environment. Melodrama was made, produced to serve the working class population who couldn't afford to go see theater, where theater back in the day was really for elites, or things like that, and it was made to give, people hope, that you could root for the good guy, you could boo the bad guy, you could see a sweet moment with a hero and his sweetheart, and you can go, oh, yeah. At the end of the day, good always conquered evil. They're really morality tales more than anything. If you look at modern rom-coms, romantic comedies, and they're all rooted, like you look at any Adam Sandler movie, they're all rooted in melodrama. You know, it's like, well, we've got to raise $250,000 to save grandma's house, so I better do really well in the golf tournament, or else, it all goes to nothing, And
let's throw a curveball in there and make him a hockey player who's never played golf.
And as a curveball, but so many of those, movies and tales and things like that are rooted in that kind of, style of storytelling.
And one of the great things about melodrama, too, is it's one of the first art forms to come out that encouraged audience participation.
Yes, and that's one of the things that we love about it the most, is that there's a equality with the audience. Okay. Where there's no either of us are better than the other. Right. It's like we're all on the same page.
Sure,
here.
right.
The minute you walk in the door, you're here to be a part of this experience. Rather than we're telling you a story, and you just have to listen to it, and they go, oh, we just have to listen to this story. No, you're here with us, to go like, oh yeah, we get to be a part of the fun, right. And
it's so American.
It's very American, yeah, because it takes all the pretense out of it, and the thing I love about what we do a lot, and I'll probably be talking about this a lot as we go on, it's the absence of self. As a performer, as somebody who does these things, as somebody who's putting that on for a group of strangers that you don't know, you take yourself out of that, knowing that somebody that you don't know is going to get joy.
One of the other things that makes the Gaslight Melodrama so special is it's privately held.
Yeah, my wife and I have now owned it almost going on 5 years now. Okay. So January we'll celebrate our 5th year anniversary as the sole owners of it. But it's been a family entity for 17 years.
Really?
Well, just the melodrama itself. Okay. The dance studio, Linda Larma and Daughters Academy of Dance, that we also own, that's right next door on the same plot of land. Right. That is a business that's been in Bakersfield for over 40 years.
Wow.
You know, started by my wife's mother, Linda Larma.
Right.
God bless, and you know, dear to my heart. And when her and her husband Arnie, God rest his soul, when they decided to retire, my wife and I were like, well, let's just give it a shot.
Right.
Let's see if we can buy it and see if we can do it and
Right.
keep it going. And fortunately, we were able to.
But you knew what you were getting into.
Yeah,
Because you'd been involved with the theater for how many years before that?
With this theater?
Yeah.
Since day one.
Since the very, so 17 years
Since
ago.
the beginning, yeah.
Right,
Since the beginning, they, you know, when they decided to do this, my wife and I were on vacation a year before we opened.
Right.
You know, we always took a summer vacation to see my family back east in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. And we got the phone call, and it was my wife's parents going, well, we're going to reopen the Melodrama. And we're like, oh, okay, cool. And then a year later, they're like, hey, do you want to be in it? You know, do you want to do a show? I was like, yeah, I'd love to, you know. I wasn't working in theater at the time, you know. It was just kind of like a side gig.
Right.
And then over the next few months, the original artistic director left, and they asked me, like, will you please come on and do that role, take that over for us.
And for those who don't understand the art community, especially the theatrical community, your role prior to ownership of the Melodrama was very creative and still is very creative.
Yes.
How many shows a year does the Melodrama do?
6. Well, 6 main stage shows,
Right.
including the vaudeville reviews.
Right.
And then we do 2 children's theater productions.
Right.
And then we do 12 magic shows.
Right. With Ron Saylor.
Which he produces. We just provide the location, but we're it's always so fun when it's magic night. It's like, ooh, magic day. Who's going to be here today? You know, what are we going to get to see behind the scenes of?
Right.
And we usually do 2 or 3 magic shows that the Omnipresent Puppet Theater puts on as well.
Of the main stage shows, how many do you write?
I've written over 80. And
80 shows.
Yeah, and we've produced over 110. Because in 2020,
Right.
that was the start of our 15th anniversary.
Right.
And the first show of 2020 was our 100th show.
Wow.
And we were very excited about 2020.
Sure.
And then lockdowns happened.
Oh no.
And so like
Right,
you know
right,
everything went like you know,
Screech.
pull the brakes, you know, 8 months off of doing nothing. And since then we've come back and I've written and directed probably about 10 more of those since 2020. So
Right.
we're roughly around about 110 shows, of which 80 of so I have.
Now, one of the things that I absolutely love that you do for your performances for the Melodrama, and it carries over to the Ron Saylor Magic Show as well, is the announcements that the bar is closed.
Yeah, that grew out of.
Well, first of all, describe to our audience what happens, because this is quintessential melodrama to start with,
Yes.
and it's so much fun.
I think it stems from the booing and the cheering.
Right.
Right. Like that's kind of like the first seed of the night.
Right.
You know, like it's
the first taste
it's
of
like
what's
the warm
coming.
up. It's
Right,
the
right,
warm up.
right,
It's
right.
the warm up. You know, where somebody comes up and goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, I got good news and I got bad news." And they're like looking at you, like they stop talking amongst each other
Right.
for the first time and go like, "What's he saying?" And the bar is closed, and they hold the sign, "Boo!" And they just started doing it one day. Like, we didn't tell them to do it. They just started doing it, and we're like, okay. But I've got good news. It'll be open at the next intermission. They're freaking out. That's like it. And I always end it. I'm the only one that does it, but I always end it with, I knew you'd come around. Just to give them a little, like,
Your shows, if you want to invite the family and the kids, because they're not PG-13, rated R, or anything else like that, this is a family-friendly environment.
Very much so, yeah. I think in comedy or entertainment, you shouldn't seek to offend, and there are, ways that you can even talk about topical things like the Twilight Zone.
Right.
Where it's a wonderful environment to be able to tell these morality tales.
Right.
To where people can, take an escape from life and go like, oh yeah, I get it.
Right.
Like, oh, my life's like that.
Right, right.
But they're these silly, over-the-top, ridiculous things, like you would have like in a Blazing Saddles or an Airplane or, like the old classic 80s comedies,
Right.
that really pushed the envelope and went beyond. But they did them very cleverly, you know, and that's what we kind of strive for.
When we come back in the next segment, we're going to be talking more about the business of owning a theater, and a financially profitable one at that. And we're going to be talking about the one thing that a lot of business owners struggle with, which is letting go, letting other people do things so that you can free up your time to do other tasks. But before we get into the next segment, if visionaries want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Give us a call.
And the phone number is?
The phone number is 661-587-3377.
What was that number again?
661-587-3377. I'm here all the time.
Sure.
You know,
except for when you're not.
Or except for when I'm not, and I get my one day off. Or send us an email, you know, gaslightmelodrama@yahoo.com.
And where is the Gaslight Melodrama?
We're in Rosedale, 12748 Joe Monte Drive, just off of Allen Road, a half mile north of Rosedale Highway.
Website?
Themelodrama.com.
Social media?
Gaslight Melodrama on
Just
Facebook.
put it in there.
Yeah, just put in Gaslight Melodrama on Facebook or Instagram. You'll find us immediately.
And if you enjoy a small business celebration, go ahead and like, subscribe, and notify. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about delegation when we chat more with Michael Prince when we come right back. The winter season is rapidly approaching. But are the tires on your car or truck ready for wet weather? Bakersfield's best tire store, Cleroux Tire, has been serving families like yours for 80 years and installs and services the tires your family depends on when the wet weather comes. Give Cleroux Tire a call at 661-324-6069 and ask them about what tire works best for you and your budget. Call Cleroux Tire at 661-324-6069 or visit them at 530 East 21st Street in Bakersfield or at ClerouxTire.com today. The wet winter weather is rapidly approaching. Call Cleroux Tire at 661-324-6069 today. I'm here with Michael Prince, the co-owner of the Gaslight Melodrama and Music Hall. And our visionary question comes from Jamie, who asks, how did you handle allowing other people to take care of tasks of your business that you've done yourself for so many years?
Oh, trust.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, you know, you find people who hopefully you have an instinctual thing where you go like, oh, that's a good person. You know, that's somebody who gets it. That's somebody who gets what we do.
Sure.
And we've been very fortunate to have a lot of people who get it, who know it right away, and you let go of self. You let go of that idea, like I'm the only one who can do it.
But that's a hard thing to do.
It is. It is a hard thing.
And how did you overcome that?
Because you don't want to be exhausted.
Okay,
you know,
right.
Because you already know that you have so much that you have to do as well.
Right.
You know that if you can delegate the minutia, you know, and there are people who do it and do it well and do it better and take the initiative, and you don't take offense.
There it is.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you don't sit there and like somebody goes, oh, you know, I did this thing. It was better than you ever thought it was going to be.
Right.
You don't take the attitude of like, well, why didn't I think of that? You take the attitude of like, that's great.
Right.
Congratulations, fantastic. That's wonderful. I love that. Keep please finding more ways to do that.
Right.
Because then they're empowered.
Right.
And they continue to make it better.
Right. One of the things that you mentioned in passing in all that is letting go of yourself.
Yes.
Okay. And this is something that a lot of business owners struggle with. You talked about empowering the person to do it better than you can, but you yourself, like you said, you want to grumble and whatnot. How do you take that step back, take a breath, and allow yourself to say, okay, I have to let somebody else do this, and deal with that emotionally and internally?
It comes down to selflessness. You know, you have to, and I don't know how an individual does that themselves.
Right.
But I knew I had to do that. I knew I had to do that when my son became a teenager. Okay. You know, and it was in helping him go through that stage of life is that I had to be like, okay, I'm not going to be that kind of parent who's like, oh, teenagers suck, and you know, teenagers don't know what they're doing. And well, of course they don't. They're teenagers. Right. They're young. You know, it's like, you know. So rather than do that, go, okay, take a moment, take a breath, step back, and go get yourself out of there, see it through somebody else's eyes, and let them find a way and guide as opposed to tell.
Oh, okay.
You know, if that
How
makes
did you learn this?
I've got really cool parents.
Okay.
You know,
Right,
like,
sure.
you know, who, you know, I learned multiple, you know, things from. I've always sought out mentors who were older than myself, you know, and tried to kind of, you know, guide things from them, gaze things from them.
Right.
These are things that I study all the time, still to this day.
Right.
You know, I'm a constant student. I don't believe in the fact that you've learned everything you're ever going to learn.
Right.
You know, you're learning until the day it's over.
Right.
You know, and it can always be better, and you can always try to be a better human being and a better person. So, it was not that. It was just a couple years ago where it came. It might have been during lockdowns where it came.
Right,
You know,
sure.
to the you know that moment of just kind of awareness. You know, of that, like, you know what? If you just take yourself out of it. And I had taken my mom on vacation for Mother's Day this last year, and it was just me and my mom, and we were, you know, on the coast, and we had met another, you know, group of people that were hanging out, and they were like, oh, we have teenage kids and blah blah blah. And I was with my mom, so that was very fortunate. And it was like, yeah, you just get rid of self. And my mom was like, yep, he's right. He's right. That's what you do.
Yes, Mom.
Yeah, you know, but I was like, see, she knows. And I don't know, but like the more I keep going on with this, it's like, yeah, the elimination of self helps so much.
Here at the Melodrama, you're getting ready for your Christmas show.
Yeah, we just started this week.
If you're listening to the program, describe for our audience what's going on stage behind us, because this is in its very early stages.
Very.
We're just getting started.
This is the
so describe
foundation.
for our audience what's going on here.
So this is what we call foundation
Okay.
of the show. So we just
Not
started,
to be confused with Isaac Asimov's foundation, right?
No, not at all, not at all. But we just started blocking.
Okay.
Where we're kind of we've already done the read through of the scripts, and we're going through what the set is kind of going to look like. So it's a radio station in the 1940s.
Okay.
It's a Bakersfield radio station,
Okay.
KAFY, the Big 55,
Right.
and they put on their annual Christmas Eve broadcast, but nobody's shown up.
Oh no.
So it's all going to crap,
Right,
you know,
right.
and Santa's elves, who are picking up the slack for Santa that year, stumble upon the place because they made a wrong turn at Albuquerque. And then they have to put on the show. And then slowly other people who were supposed to be in the show up as well, and they all kind of come together. So this is supposed to be the what the radio station is. We just don't have the walls up.
Or
or
the rest of the set.
the rest of the set.
But you
'cause
do have the Christmas tree.
we have the
sofa.
Christmas tree. We keep a Christmas tree on retainer, as I say. Like, I just don't take it down because I know I'm going to need it
Right.
in 11 months. So a Christmas tree is always backstage,
Right.
ready to go.
You've been doing the Melodrama for 17 years.
17 years.
And prior to that, you were a social worker.
Yeah.
But you were also doing film and television down in Hollywood.
Well, no, I was doing it here and actually up north.
And walk us briefly through the process of how you ended up here, because Bakersfield.
I'm from here. I'm from Bakersfield.
You are from Bakersfield.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm from Bakersfield. I was raised in Bakersfield. I wasn't born here, but I was raised here from 8 months old, all through high school. The day I turned 18, I moved away.
Okay.
I worked for AmeriCorps, which is like the Peace
Right,
Corps, but
right.
here in America. And I was an HIV/AIDS counselor in the 90s.
Wow. You had a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I primarily worked with homeless heroin addicts.
Wow.
Teaching them how to clean their needles and testing them, and it was for an 18-year-old,
Wow.
like right after high school. It was like,
That's an eye opener.
that's the world. Like, whoa, like you're seeing the bottomest of the world. Like,
Right.
okay, geez. And at the same time, I also really wanted to be a storyteller. And so I was doing that like as a side hustle. When I moved back to Bakersfield, I was working in child abuse prevention and still making short films. Yeah, I was doing local theater here and there. And because of that background is how I kind of stumbled into this when my in-laws were like, hey, we're building this place.
Right.
I was like, oh, that'd be fun to be involved in.
Sure,
cool.
right.
And then when they asked me to come into the fold, it was like, yeah, I feel like I've done enough experience in these last 10 years of my life.
Right.
Of doing both of those kind of things, something very artistic and something very service-oriented.
Right.
And I definitely feel like what we do is a service to people.
Right.
You know, so I try to, you know, kind of in my mindset always incorporate both of those things.
Being the artistic director is one thing. Actually owning the business is another.
Yeah.
What is something that you have learned along the way that affects the decisions you make as the owner?
That's a hard one because it is so concentrated with my wife and I, you know, and how we've kind of taken over all of these little things.
Right.
You know, and
Well, describe for us the partnership with you and your wife. Because it really is a partnership.
Oh, very much so.
And what is your wife's role in the business? Because you're very much on the creative side. Is she more on the analytical side?
yes, yeah, she's the business side. Like I said, we also own Linda Larman Daughters Academy of Dance.
Right.
You know, we've got 500 students
Congratulations.
that come through there every year.
Good.
You know, she runs that.
Right.
You know, that's a whole monster.
And what kinds of things do they teach over there?
They do tap, they do ballet, they do hip hop, gymnastics.
Right.
There's a giant recital every year, start of summer at the Fox Theater that they put on. And I run everything here,
Right.
but she's also in a lot of these shows. She
Right.
choreographs here. She runs all the business stuff for both,
Right.
you know, of like, you know, what's coming in, coming out. You know, like I run all the creative stuff here.
Right.
The creative stuff over there, you know, she runs all of that.
When we come back, have you ever heard of the term herding cats? We're going to talk more about that when we come right back. The reason we're here talking with Michael Prince, the co-owner of the Gaslight Melodrama and Music Hall, is because of a Visioneer question that came from a Visioneer just like you. We had a Visioneer that wanted to find out, how do I go through and herd cats? More specifically, a business that seems to be run by a committee. So if you've got a question, you've got a thought, something you'd like to learn about here on Small Business Celebration, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and let us know. Who knows? Your question could appear here on Small Business Celebration. So reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram today. I'm here with Michael Prince, the co-owner of the Gaslight Melodrama and Music Hall. And our Visioneer question comes from Chris, who asks, we have several partners in our business, and it seems like we're leading by committee at times. What have you done to organize the business leadership to be on the same page?
Well, when we began, the committee was still family run, you know, but it was
And at this time, this was you, your wife,
me, my wife, her parents, and her sister.
and her sister. So there were 5 of you.
Yes.
Okay.
And eventually there were 6. John Slicker.
Okay. Right.
You
sure.
know, they got married here.
Oh, okay.
And I officiated their wedding here on that stage.
Right.
You
sure.
know,
Right.
it was actually the first wedding that I had ever officiated.
Okay.
I'm actually officiating my 14th this coming weekend.
Congratulations.
To another actress.
You must be doing something right, because people keep coming back.
They
right?
ask, which is great. But anyways, I digress. Yeah, it was us, especially once this all became incorporated. You know, and so things became kind of like, well, you know, here's all my ideas for like this is what I want to do next year. You know, because I would always come with whatever the next year's season was going to be in the summer of the year before. You know, and I think of all these shows.
Because you have to plan ahead, because you're doing 1,000 shows a year, right?
Oh yeah, it's a lot, you know, and you got to cast those things, you got to put them together.
Right.
And so it was like, is this, you know, how does this look? Does this look good? You guys like this? It's, you know, it's like, oh, I don't like that. Or, you know, it's like, yeah, that looks great. Let's do that.
Right.
You know, or, you know, it would come to me and be like, well, this is what I want to do this year. You know, blah blah blah. It's like, okay. Now it's just me and Jen, you know, going, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. And a fortunate thing that I always think of is, like, my wife and I spend every single night sitting on our back porch, you know, maybe having a glass of wine or a drink and just going, okay, here's what's coming, you know, and taking those steps to plan for it, you know, without any pretense or without any, you know, animosity or anything. It's like, we just know what we got to do, you know, because we've been doing this for so long.
So what you're saying, if I'm hearing this correctly, is if you want to eliminate 6 voices or you want to work with Six Voices and have a committee, what you do is you get rid of 4 of them and buy them out.
Yes. We always, like, my wife and I always say, it's like too many cooks.
Right.
You know, and I know that's a cliche, but it's true.
Okay.
You know, you get too many cooks in the kitchen, the soup's gonna get gross.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's gonna be, and so it's like, just find, you know, kind of the singular vision, you know, and be able to find people who can get on that boat with you,
right.
that you can properly delegate to, and be like, this is what we're looking for, and they go, okay, yeah, got it.
But when you had 6 cooks making the soup, how did you get on the same page, and how did that work out?
It was the same thing.
Okay.
There was still trust.
Oh, okay.
You know, there was still trust from Arnie and Linda, my wife's parents.
Right.
You know, who they were like, I trust Michael, you know, to do, you know, what we need to do for this. You know, if they had any questions or if they had any like reservations, you know, they'd be like, well, I don't know about this, and we'd communicate, you know, and talk and be like, you know, well, this is why I'm thinking that way, you know, and they'd be like, well, okay, I can see that, but what about this? And it's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that as well. Okay, yeah, sure, you know, and so you have to be willing. Again, it all comes down to let go of self. You know, like because the minute you get yourself emotionally, like way too emotionally involved,
Right.
it all kind of crumbles, you know, and you have to be able to take emotionality out of it in order to see the bigger picture.
You spend 100 hours a week here.
Okay. Not counting what I take when I go home, you know, or when I sleep.
What do you do to escape and unwind?
We leave town.
Okay.
You know, and we just go, okay, we'll look at our watch, we'll look at our calendars and be like, okay, we have this night or these 2 days away.
Right.
You know, where are we going to go?
Right.
And, okay, obviously it's got to be someplace maybe close.
Right.
You know, so we head off to the coast just to wash everything away, see the beach. We'll go San Francisco. We'll go to Las Vegas for 4 days. We'll go, you know, oh, we've got 2 weeks. We can go see my family. We can, you know, we just get out of town and kind of escape ourselves.
Sure.
You know, do our own escape.
Right.
You know.
What are some of the places that you guys have gone?
Oh, you know, like I said, I mean, we really do love the beach. We love the coast. We love mountain areas. We love, you know, all the cliche things, you know.
Right, right.
But, like, I think as we've gotten older, they become a little more sacred.
Right.
And you kind of, you hold them a little dearer because you respect the majesty of what they are now.
Right.
You know, because it's not just like, oh, yeah, we're going to the beach. It's like, you just take it in a little more. You
Right.
know what I mean? At least for me, that's what it feels like. You know, and I know my wife. My son's almost 16, so he's like, "Oh, it's the beach, woohoo!" You know,
Sure.
You know, and that's what he should feel. You know, that's the point when you're 16. You know,
Right.
you shouldn't have to worry about those things. It just should be like, "Mom and Dad are taking me to the beach, woo!" You know, awesome. You know, but it's just a chance to reflect and to regroup and the older we get now, we're starting to like, let's try something we've never been before. Let's try an area of California that we've never seen before. Because we love California. I love California to death. You know, and people badmouth it all over the place. It was like, are you kidding? This is the most beautiful place in the world. And we just like, we're just starting to kind of like, let's go to some place we've never been. And so that like, we're starting to kind of explore a little more.
You mentioned that part of the travel is appreciation things, and it's beginning to open things up. How has that appreciation, or what have you learned from that appreciation that you apply to the melodrama?
It's funny, you know, we're working this new show that we've just started, our new Christmas show. There's a lot of people in the show who've only done a few things here or there. Right. With us before, or people who've never done stuff with us on the main stage. So it's a lot of new faces, you know, kind of being with us, and even that is making me appreciate what we do even more, because seeing what I'm perceiving as their joy, you know, of doing this with us is what I see when I go to other places and I see people enjoying the work that they do. Right. No matter what it is, whether it's you're at a restaurant, whether it's, you know, you're at a bar, another theater, you're at a theme park, you're at any other, you know, place, even a, you know, retail outlet, you know, when you see somebody having joy in what they do,
Right.
it reciprocates to you as the person receiving the joy that they're trying to give. And so I've become very much more aware of that. And so when I witness it, you know, it kind of comes on me twofold.
Right.
You know, go like, yeah, that's right. That's why we do this. That's why we're here. Because it can always get frustrating. There's always frustrations. There's always things that happen. And you know, it's very easy to kind of lock yourself into this thing of like, you know, I hate this. And, oh gosh, why is this happening? Like, oh, why won't this work?
Right.
You know, and you know, that's just generalities. You know, but at the end of the day, you know, what it boils down to is that you've seen somebody that you don't know have some joy in this world. And that's so precious. And it's so rare, you feel like, to see these days.
What makes you wake up every morning and open your business?
Being with my wife and my son when I go to sleep and when I wake up. Knowing that when I go to bed, the first thing I do before I go to bed is I go into my son's room, because he's usually up playing a video game or whatever, and I can say goodnight to him, and he's right there with me every damn night. And when I lay down in bed and my wife comes and lays down next to me, I can look over to her and she can look over to me, and we can say, I love you, and we can kiss each other and go to sleep and shut our eyes. And the first thing I do when I wake up is say, good morning, dear, I love you. And she's right there with me. And I go and I wake up my son and say, good morning, I love you. And that's how we start and end our day. And that's the thing that I hold so precious, because I didn't grow up with that. I never saw that when I was a kid. And the fact that I get to do that now at 45 and have been able to do that for 16 years and will continue to do that until our son moves away, and God knows what the hell I'm going to do when that happens. It'll just be, you know, me and my wife again going, well, he's gone. I love you still. But that's more than anything, is that I get to have my family with me, and that I get to have the family that I always wanted. And yeah, I mean, my wife, you know, she comes from the same kind of thing that I come from. You know, we're both only children from our parents. You know, we both come from divorce, you know, and when we decided to take this journey together, just when we were young, in our early 20s, it was like, look, this is it, it's me and you. Like, we know that, right? Like, the D word is not on the horizon. So let's make sure that we're serious about this. I was like, yep, here we go. And we've gone through so many things through the years that have challenged us and struggles us, but we've always, you know, just been wholehearted and faithful to each other and what our goal was to go through this life together. And that's it. I mean, you hear people often talk about, well, if you go into a company and they say, oh, we're like a family around here, and they go like, ooh, that's a red flag. Sometimes it's not, because this is a family around here, because we are a family. You know, this family business is show business. And the whole point of why we're doing this is to bring some bit of joy into this world that very oftentimes can feel bogged down with just the worst of the worst. And it's a privilege to be able to do this, and it's a privilege to be able to do this with the people that I love.
Thank you for joining us here on Small Business Celebration. This has been wonderful.
Of course.
If Visioneers want to get
Thank you.
Thank you. And if Visioneers want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Give me a call. I'm here all the time. I live here. 661-587-3377. Give a call, leave a message if I'm not here. You can email us at gaslightmelodrama@yahoo.com. You can find us on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Gaslight Melodrama, just look us up. We'll pop up. Slide into our DMs. You know, whatever.
And I'll be right back with my final thought. The winter season is rapidly approaching, but are the tires on your car or truck ready for wet weather? Bakersfield's best tire store, Claru Tire, has been serving families like yours for 80 years and installs and services the tires your family depends on when the wet weather comes. Give Claru Tire a call at 661-324-6069 and ask them about what tire works best for you and your budget. Call Claru Tire at 661-324-6069 or visit them at 530 East 21st Street in Bakersfield or at clarutire.com today. The wet winter weather is rapidly approaching. Call Claru Tire at 661-324-6069 today. They'll let you know. One of the things that many of us have a challenge with in life is wondering if we're doing a good job. Yes, we go through, we start a business, we start getting clients, we start getting customers, we start getting paid, we start paying the bills, we start developing and growing our businesses, but way back in the back of our minds, we still have that little voice asking, am I good enough? Am I doing a good job? And it's not always a question that gets answered immediately. Yes, validation is, especially personal validation, is always a welcome thing. But sometimes that answer doesn't come as quickly and as often as we would like. And one of the things that I picked up from my conversation this week with Michael Prince is the sense of personal validation. After all, he was invited by the original owners of the Gaslight Melodrama to come and be the artistic director. And then after a while, he and his wife became the owners of the Gaslight Melodrama. And this was not something that happened overnight. This was something that took years and years and years of growth and development and progress in order to make that happen. And yet, he was invited to come and be a part of the Gaslight Melodrama. Then he was invited to start writing the shows. And then he was invited to take a larger and bigger role until ultimately he and his wife bought the business. Well, if it's any indication there's a lot of self-validation that happened on Michael Prince's part, because the owners of the business did not have to invite him. They did not have to ask him to write the shows. And ultimately, they did not have to ask he and his wife to buy the business. So, as we go through our lives, as we're developing our businesses, when we get feedback, it may not come in the ways that we initially think about it. Gee, buddy, you're doing a great job. It may come much more subtly and in much big sweeping changes. After all, the people who are important, the people who are important to you, they'll let you know. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week with Michael Prince, the co-owner of the Gaslight Melodrama and Music Hall, and I hope you learned something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business, and we'll see you here again next week. By the way, what did the thief steal from the theater
Oh, a joke.
on opening night?
What?
The spotlight.
Dad joke out the gate. Dad joke out the gate. All right.
We know how this conversation is going to go.
Like it. All right.
Feel free to steal that one. Be a thief.
Oh, I am a thief. I steal everything. Trust me, I'm not ashamed.
Welcome to Small Business Celebration, and our guest this week is...
I chose family over, kind of...
Sure, I get it.
Because my family needed me. And, my mother-in-law and father-in-law were like, look, we know you have experience with this. We need help, or this whole thing's going to go down in flames.
Save us!
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'm there. And so it was like, it was the first Christmas show here.
Right.
And the original artistic director left.
Oh, yeah.
And they called me out of nowhere, and they're like, look, he just left. Will you do the Christmas show? And I had like 9-10 days to put it together, to like write a whole new Christmas Carol script. And I was like, sure, got it. I was like, oh shit.
Where's that double espresso machine?
Oh God, I didn't even need that. I had enough adrenaline, and fear pumping through that I was okay, man. And then it was, after that Christmas show, it was a few months later, my wife and I found out we were going to have our child, our son.
Right.
I was like, oh shit, everything's shifted now.
Right.
I was still working in social work at the time, and because I was doing both.
Right.
At that time, I was doing I was really doing full time here, and I had switched to part-time social work. And it was like my boss, where I was working at the counseling center, was like, I get it, I get what you're doing here,
Right.
but for your own sake, you need to make a choice.
Right.
Because I see you burning the candle at both ends,
Right.
and it's going to kill you. And you need to decide what's what. And if you want to come here full time and go that way, I get it. If you want to do that, but you need to make the choice. And I had a breakdown. I was like, okay. So I went to my in-laws. I was like, look, I can do this, but this is what I need. I named my price.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was like, I will come in here gung ho, and then I had a kid coming, and
You got to pay the bills.
got to pay the bills. I got to raise my family, and if I can do this while doing something that I love, which I'd always wanted to be a writer and a director.
Right.
And it's like I could do that here with all the people I love,
Right.
And my family, and it's like, all right, full force. And I just had blind faith. I don't know why, but I did. I was just like, because I had no other choice. It was like if I have somebody else coming into this world that I'm responsible for, and I'm madly in love with my wife, and we're doing this together, it's like, let's go. And I just full barreled and just had this thing. It was like, I think I can make this work. I think I can make something that I want to see, that hopefully other people will want to see.
Right.
And so then it would, that
Ever since.
that lane went.
Right.
Yeah. You can put a light on and it makes it more spooky, and we
Does this actually show?
No, probably if you took it outside, but like this is a rain meter
Right.
you put on the side of your house, that will judge how much rain you've got.
Okay.
These are just things that people can free, that, so, it's just like finding new ways to